Hey, how you going? Just like everyone else on YouTube at the moment, I've come to talk to you about Path of Exile 2. So, I've been a fan of Path of Exile for a while. It's actually a pretty awesome game, and ever since they announced that Path of Exile 2 was going to be launched, I was pretty excited, but I don't know, I was kind of scared at the same time. But I'm really glad that I can go out of my way to say that Path of Exile 2 is outstanding. Not just as someone playing a game, but like from a development standpoint, from just the way that the developers communicate, it's so refreshing to see. Again, I'm sorry if this is a bit of a weird one, but this is going to be a lot of me rambling about the game and what I liked, just a first impressions video overall, pretty much. So something that I noticed immediately as soon as I started playing Path of Exile 2 is this game is a lot more approachable than Path of Exile 1, which I think really helps. Especially, like, ARPGs are something that really struggle with trying to make sure that people can get into them, and Path of Exile 1 had a massive learning curve. Like, as soon as people see the, like, sphere grid style, like, Final Fantasy X leveling system, I had so many friends look at it and just say, I think I'm good, I'm gonna give this one a pass. And yes, while Path of Exile 2 still keeps this, it's a lot easier to move into than some of the other things, because with Path of Exile 1 you had the different spells and gems and all of this kind of like meshed together that it didn't really explain. But yeah, Path of Exile 2 does an outstanding job of not only explaining it, but keeping the same ideas from the first game and just bringing them into the modern day. Path of Exile 1 released in 2012, I think, and it's pretty evident, like, even with all of the adjustments and changes they've made, Path of Exile 1 feels like an old game, a very ambitious old game, but still pretty old, where Path of Exile 2 doesn't give me that impression at all, even though there are a lot of, like, references and a lot of the maps feel very similar to the first game. It's just fresh, it feels new. Even like discovering and just walking around the maps, you have so much space to explore and have fun, and it's really cool. Something I wanted to say as well is, like, the boss fights also feel a lot better than they did in the first game. Not just because they move around a lot more, but just the animations are smoother. The way that they try to trap you into places, it feels like the classes you have access to give you a lot more, and a lot more of a unique way to fight enemies than they did in Path of Exile 1, considering Path of Exile 1, you kind of had like two classes. You had like melee classes and ranged classes. Witch and Ranger kind of just fell into the same, like, you use elemental abilities, and that's kind of it. And then there was, like, minions, where here you have, like, Monk, you have Mercenary, you have Witch, you have Sorcerer, and all of them feel they can do a lot more than just what their class is supposed to. And that's because I feel like they're trying to, like, allow you to customize your character as you want, which is, again, it's just so nice to see. Something that's taking the, like, customizability and all of the stuff that we can do in the modern day and actually, like, allowing the player to play with it. I've also noticed that while playing the game, there's a lot more that feels easier to understand. Like, when you walk up to chests, they have, like, a colored bar across them to tell you what rarity of chest they are, or what, like, type of loot they'll drop. Like, if you find one that is really good, it'll have a gold name because it's a really good chest. Where a lot of the grey ones you can just kind of walk past now. You don't have to go around and, like, open every single little jar on the map just in case something good spawns, because they won't. You know that now, they explain that now. But there is one or two things that I wanted to talk about that I don't feel work as well. I've been playing Mercenary for a majority of my time so far, and I really like the class, but the way that their combat works feels a little bit janky. And again, I know that this is an early access and I can't hold this against it, and I go into this completely understanding that, unlike some other people. But yeah, like, if I was one of the devs, one of the first things that I would try to approach is the transition from when you're rolling to when you try to get back into combat, because it feels like some classes have a much easier time than others. So when you're dodge rolling or moving around opponents, you can hold down your attack button as a mercenary to use whatever ammunition type you have loaded up. Except sometimes under certain circumstances, like whether you're just coming out of a roll or if you have just been hit by an enemy, you can hold down that button and it won't fire. Even if you tap it a few times, it'll take maybe half a second to 2 seconds to allow you to continue shooting again. And while that doesn't sound like a lot, it is when you're in the middle of combat, especially with a game that is this difficult. And that's something that I really think they picked up from Path of Exile 2, which I think people are getting maybe a bit twisted. Path of Exile 1 was a difficult game. There were bosses that were difficult. Just because they were static doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't hard. But when you get up to the boss of Act 1, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you better be prepared to die a lot. And that's why a lot of people are calling it the Dark Souls of ARPGs, which I don't agree with. Like, just because it's dark fantasy or like grimdark and you have a role and it's a difficult game, that really, guys, that doesn't mean it's a Souls-like or that it's like a Dark Souls game. You'll be surprised as to how many different games existed before Dark Souls that had that style as well. It's just that I feel Dark Souls was one of the first games that really pushed it into people's eyes, and that's why a lot of people just immediately go, that's Dark Souls. That's Dark Souls right there. Path of Exile 2 is its own game. And I understand people are only using it as like an equivalence thing so that it's easier to understand, but if I was to put it into simple words, I would say Path of Exile 2 is a lot closer to what I imagined I was playing when I was playing Path of Exile 1. It's also to say that this is what Diablo 4 could have been. This is everything Diablo 4 should have been. And it's really disappointing to see Diablo 4 dying, rightfully so, considering all of the mistakes that they've made with that game, and just seeing like what they could have done with this same format, under the same guise, with a company that is not even a fifth of their size. Like, Blizzard, come on man, really? You're gonna let some Kiwi developers, like with maybe 200 employees, like match you like that and just stomp all over you? You guys have enterprises. You are massive companies that are allowed to do whatever you want at any point in time. And this, like, a bunch of Kiwis are defeating you. And that being said, grinding games, holy shit. That you have done such an incredible job with this game from the top to the bottom of it. Yes, there are a lot of things to nitpick at, but again, early access. And for an early access launch, like a game that hasn't even fully come out yet, not only have you done really well in sales, which you 100% deserve, but also like the launch went so smoothly compared to so many other games that have come out this year, like Dragon's Dogma 2 or The Final Shape. Like, oh, it's so nice to see, and you guys did an incredible job at just letting your community know what was going on as soon as you need it. But seriously guys, if you have a chance, I would highly recommend you support these guys and go out and buy the early access. And if you don't have the money, that's okay, because as Grinding Gears have said, and I actually trust them with this, unlike I would say with almost any other developer right now, in 6 months, give or take, probably, Path of Exile 2 is going to be free. So if you really want to play this, but you can't right now, just wait the 6 months. It'll all be accessible to you, which I support these guys, man. Like, from start to finish, they've done such an incredible job. It's so refreshing to see, especially with the Game Awards coming around, it's difficult to see like what the Game Awards is trying to put out as like being the top of all time. It's like yes, I know they're not an indie developer necessarily, but they have so much potential and they have pulled through so much with just this game. It's incredible to see. But anyway, I'm done. I'll get off my knees for Triple G. This might not be a masterpiece, maybe not in the eyes of a lot of people, but it is by far easily going to be one of my top addictions for the next probably at least 6 months until it comes free, and then I'm gonna have to get re-addicted all over again so I can play with the public. Anyway, I'm gonna probably edit this video as quickly as I can and ship it off because I really want to play Path of Exile 2 some more. What can I say? It's kind of amazing. I'll see you in Path of Exile 2. Hopefully some people can see this and just be like, oh wow, that's really cool. This fat guy is also likes the game that I like.